lounging, son.
Welcome back to another episode of the Comic Lounge Podcast, guys. I am your host, the mighty Dill Button. With me, as always, the mighty Ryan. And today we're going to be talking. We're going to be actually starting our whole spiel with the Image 30-year anniversary, and we are going to hit it hard with Youngblood, the first release from Image Comics.
April 1992.
Yeah. April 1992, and yeah, like Rob Liefeld. It's almost fitting that Rob was the first Image release, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's the reason Image even exists, really. I mean, I just got off an interview with Jim Valentino, who, Shadowhawk. He did Shadowhawk.
Yeah.
He just put out the official Image timeline, where went through. It's awesome. I fucking loved it. There's stuff that I knew. There's stuff that I wasn't quite sure of in terms of when it came out. Stuff I had no idea existed, which is pretty cool. It was a really awesome project, and he even said it. There is no Image without Rob Liefeld. That was exact his words. So
yeah.
I mean, he's the one that got the ball rolling. He's the one that was recruiting people to join him to come do it. I think I mentioned it in the Image 30th episode that we did. The Executioners, that ad he took out in the Comics Buyer's Guide. And then he got clapped back from Marvel, and they're like, nope, you can't do that. You cannot do that. It's too close to what you're doing with X-Force. And I think he just took that and used it as fuel. He's like, oh fuck, and then when Marvel finds out and they start you could see they're starting to get a little scared, and then that just added to the fire, man. And I think everybody was everyone that joined was skeptical, obviously.
It's
so
rough,
Rob, you don't know what's gonna happen.
It's a scary thing, it's a serious scary thing. You just basically put the middle finger up to the two biggest employers in your industry, and you're like, you know what, we're gonna do our own thing. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it does.
Yeah, but they didn't even want to. It's not like they wanted to just leave.
Yeah.
They would have. I think most of them would have loved to continue doing their stuff. I don't think Rob was his intention was oh, I want to do this and I want to leave X-Force and I want to leave Marvel. No, but they were basically given the ultimatum. So look, and I think the numbers spoke for themselves. Dude, they started seeing the return on Youngblood #1, and it far exceeded his expectations, and then that's when it became real. And I think that's when all the other founding fathers of Image Comics, were like, okay, this is viable. We can do this. And I mean, Eric Larson, who I talked to a couple weeks ago, first issue of Savage Dragon, he's like, I paid my mortgage off. I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing this, And eventually, I think we also talked about Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld go to the Heroes Reborn. Jim Lee sells to fucking DC, sells Wildstorm. And, then there's only 5. Eventually, they add in Robert Kirkman. He becomes a partner. Eric Stevenson becomes a partner.
Yeah.
So
this Image family just grows.
Youngblood, it's definitely a 90s comic book. You know what I mean? It's not a shame to say.
It's a 90s comic in the best ways, though.
Yes. But the trading cards there's fucking trading cards. They don't do this anymore. Why? I would be down if Marvel or DC threw a fucking trading card in there. I mean, that's cool. Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen, because 90s is making a comeback. People our age are nostalgic for it. People our age are working now, so we can buy the stuff we couldn't buy when we were kids. Even if it's not something super expensive, it's I was just I have gaps. I have I'll be missing 2-3 issues of a run, right? From when I was a kid collecting, because I wasn't getting them from shops necessarily. I was getting from the newsstand, I get from the grocery store. 7-Eleven. Fucking 7-Eleven had comics. Nobody fucking remembers that unless they're our age or older. And so going back and rediscovering this, it's been fun, and I'm glad that this gave us a reason to do it for the channel, because I love Image. Image is my favorite publisher, and to be able to fucking read these old 90s comics with you, it's fun, because we weren't friends in the 90s. We were friends later on. But it's cool to like now like we can come and talk about it together. And let me off top say writing not the best. I don't read these necessarily for the story. I read them for the art because back then a 22-year-old, he's a kid, dude. Yeah. This dude is a kid and he was selling millions of copies of his own self-published comic book. That to me is just such an awesome story.
No, that's kind of like what the comic book dreams are made of, right?
Yeah.
Like knock it out of the park in your first try. like you know what I mean? Like this is equivalent to a multi-platinum record in your first solo debut, right?
Yeah.
This is like people still talk about this. Like, comic numbers just aren't hitting what they're hitting like they were in the 90s.
And they're never going to again.
And they're never going to again. It's just like, there's so many underlying factors, but then people are going to talk about Youngblood, about Spawn, about all these multi-million dollars made in X amount of years. Yes, I know. Oh,
it's so awesome.
So you know how we were just supposed to read the first story arc? I kept on reading on, and like I got to Lieutenant Colonel Bravo, and
wait, which issue?
I think it's issue 6.
Okay.
Yeah, it's issue 6, and Lieutenant Colonel Bravo, and he's riding the Akira bike, but like Rob's, reimagining of the Akira bike.
Yeah,
like, that's fucking cool.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Akira, dude, because like he's constantly talking about it on his show. How much manga was influenced. He was influenced with his art. Like that's manga, dude. All those fucking
all lines.
Like
all the lines.
And I'll say it, like I love where his art has evolved to.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about his early stuff. And not necessarily like the beginning, like the Hawk and Dove for DC when he really broke on the scene. But I'm talking about like his New Mutants, his X-Force.
Yeah.
That shit was just like they don't really do that in comic books at Marvel and DC anymore. There's not really that type of energy and action that jumps off the page, in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it's all comics, but to me it's kind of a rarity when we see this type of like action because it's become more of a writer focused medium at times.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's and back then it was artist driven, and I mean that's why you see these fucking double page splash, dude.
That I forget what issue it is, but it's an issue with Shaft doing a front flip and then into a jump kick and then while shooting his arrows, and it was just a double page splash. It was like damn, this is why I fell in love with comics in the 90s, because keep in mind, keep in mind, like it wasn't like I'm not saying like these artists in the 90s all emulated each other and had a thing, but there was a certain look, like very just explosive look to 90s comics, whether it be from from like the poses used or the amount of double of splash pages or just muscles rippling. We're talking about like just the art itself was just so explosive. Like you say, it just pops off the page. But like,
dude, like look at that shit.
Yeah, Prophet.
It's insane. It's insane.
Prophet getting decked.
I mean, like Prophet is like, and then it's crazy too because like it sucks that he doesn't own Youngblood anymore. But I
would love to see more Youngblood.
Yeah, but he has Prophet, and we're gonna see a Prophet film. You know what I mean? Like Jake Gyllenhaal starring, Sam Hargrave is directing, I believe. But like he's just introducing concept after concept too. Like just within the first arc, you get Prophet in issue 2. You get the backup of Supreme in number 3. You also see the debut of Shadowhawk in number 2. Yeah. This is the first appearance of Shadowhawk. Like it doesn't unlike the rest of the characters from the Founding Fathers, like they all debuted in their own series. Shadowhawk came out in June. Like this has a June solicit date on the cover, and then we don't see Shadowhawk 1 until August.
Yeah.
Fucking backwards. I cannot wait.
Shadowhawk. Yeah.
I can't wait.
Shadowhawk's gonna be fun. But no, like, I mean, like you take at first glance, like, if you flip through the pages of Youngblood, like you're gonna be like, oh, this is kind of derivative, right? This is like Rob Liefeld at his finest, I think. Like, right down from the story to the art to, just the general feel of it. It's like,
how about Kirby, dude?
Yeah,
how about Kirby?
I love his
Kirby.
cigar.
Yeah, I mean, and he doesn't
Kirby
try to hide
cigars.
it.
I love that.
He doesn't even try to hide it, dude. And I think there's other characters throughout the early Image comics. I think like Emp from Wildcats.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Kirby. He's a short dude, fucking looks stocky. Looks like he'd be Kirby.
Yeah. He
right.
Looks like Kirby. He had the high and tight.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't get the Wildcats either. Wildcats is gonna be fun.
Oh, dude, all of them. I can't wait to talk to all of them, dude. The only one that wasn't in the initial launch was Wetworks, and that's because of some things that were going on in Whilce Percassio's life, which prevented him from launching in the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, dude, just I've read these multiple times. This it's not my first or second go around with Youngblood. This is actually
my first time revisiting.
Really? Since back then, yeah.
Yeah, since back then, and I had holes in the issues. So like I think I had 1 and 2, and then I missed 3 and 4. Then I got 5 and 6, and then I think from like 10 on, I got them all. But like I had holes in my collection, dude. Youngblood.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just a fucking it's the energy. What?
There's even Kirby energy circles and energy balls, energy spears.
Kirby Crackle.
There it is. Thank you. I knew it was on the tip of my tongue.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
And I love the there's the home team and the away team. So we have 2 different teams of characters. And
Gold and blue, got it.
Yeah, and I love the names: Brahma, Riptide, Photon, Sci-Fi, Sentinel, Cougar. Which obviously there's definitely I can't think of the word, but he's riffing off of X-Men type characters or Avengers type characters. Because Shaft, you could say, is like Hawkeye, right? You got Bedrock, who has to change the name to Badrock because of the Flintstones. They fucking made him change it, because it's copyrighted.
I didn't know Bedrock was copyrighted.
Yeah, right. So that's why eventually it changes to Badrock later on.
Oh.
Yeah. And then Die Hard Vogue, Chapel, who has ties to Spawn, or did have ties to Spawn, but I don't think that fucking Todd ever kind of calls back to Chapel anymore.
No,
even though he was such an integral part of Spawn lore in the beginning, because I even recently, I didn't have Youngblood's Strike File. I fucking bought 10 of those issues, and there's a whole Chapel storyline with insane art by Jay Lee. Jay Lee in the 90s. Do yourself a favor. Do yourself a favor.
Jay Lee in the 90s was.
We're gonna read Hellshock. Hellshock is another Image book from the 90s that Jay Lee did, and he did a run on Namor too with John Byrne writing. Is that
what the hook hand Namor, long hair Prince Namor?
Yeah.
With the hood, with the.
Does he have a hook?
Hand? Or is it the armor? Is it the armor?
Maybe it's armor. I'm not sure. I bought a stack of those too. I just haven't read. I mean, dude, I have 3 or 4 short boxes worth of back issues that I need to read. Yeah, I'm not joking. This is a sickness. It's a sickness I have.
I'm believing you. I'm believing you.
I'll get through it. I'll get through it. I just keep cutting stuff from my pull list so that I can read old comics, because that's where my joy is found. My joy is found in reading some of the older comic books. The collections that keep coming into the shop, I keep finding more and more.
It's crazy, right? There's been just, I it's not that I know, but I see and I talk to the people at Arsenal, and just the amount of collections that are coming in, and it's real legit treasure troves. Nothing like Silver Age or anything like that, but some of the 80s, 90s stuff that's just
See, for me, it's a treasure trove. Because I'm getting them cheap, because there's so much, they're so overprinted from back then. So I'll go Nick's new collections in the back. I'm all right. I go through it. I'm there's nothing really in there, but here's my stack that I want to buy. So I got I think I got 50 books.
And you get no argument from Nick, because he absolutely just abhors friggin' 90s comics.
Oh yeah, he give 2 shits about it. He's is there anything in there worth money? I'm and no. And he's is anything good? I'm well, to me, yeah. To you, You know, I'm sure you're gonna judge me when you fucking go through this pile, but I care less. You know, and I've been fucking filling in my holes for all the '90s Image. I'm like, dude, I'm doing Image 30th anniversary coverage with Dylan. I need to read as much as I can. So if I see a Grifter and fucking Bad Rock crossover, you bet your ass that I'm gonna fucking take those home with me. You know, if I see some issues of Prophet that I'm missing, by Stephen Platt on art, I'm taking that home. So, anyways, though,
give you some Max.
Oh yeah, I do. But this Youngblood, like, it's just, to me, I don't want to. It's hard to say whether it holds up or not, because it's not like it's necessarily, in terms of the content, it doesn't feel like a product of its. It's not like it's a product of its time. I mean, obviously, when you look at the art, you see that it is, right. But to me, like, I enjoy it just as much as I did when I was a kid. So in that respect, it holds up. You know, it holds up really well for me because I've gone back. I mean, this will be the third time over the last 2 years that I've read these issues.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, it's because you know we're the elder nerd now, right? We finally reached that area of elder nerd in our lives, and I know that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I know. That's so awesome.
That's what I was talking about. But yeah, we reached that level of elder nerd, and it's funny because it's like, you know, you want to take off your nostalgia glasses because we do it with stuff that's like from the 2000s or even now the 2010s. We, like, you know, we take off our nostalgia glasses. But the thing is, it's like with comic books and with like the 90s comics in particular, if you grew up with it, if you were in that time frame, in that time zone, like the instant you see the art, like without even like understanding why, you're like, oh man, I love that. That's the good old 90s stuff that we grew up on, because that's literally what we grew up on. Like, you know, from Image Comics and like Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld, like everything that followed after the initial launch of Youngblood was just explosive, and it caused whole waves. Like there was an action figure wave that I've never seen before. Well, I'm talking about from like 92 to like 96, like 4 hard years where it was just like action figures everywhere, action figures of everything. Yeah, you know, like there's crossovers, like like the amount of Ninja Turtles like toys that were coming out at the time was crazy. X-Men toys that were coming out at the time was crazy. Like even found its way to the mainstream and that stupid freaking remember Jingle All the Way?
I do remember Jingle All the Way. Look, this is the toys that Dylan's talking about. This is in the Image timeline. Look at all these fucking figures. Yeah. Spawn, Todd Toys, all the fucking Wildcat figures that came out. The fucking there's an old Shadowhawk. Like I'm looking at the lack of articulation in these figures, and it's crazy to see how far even like toys have come, you know. And you could attest that to Todd too. I think Todd really made people up his game. But
yeah, okay, honestly, like I hate those. I had this stupid Silver Samurai action figure that Toy Biz put out, right? And I was so hyped to get it. I was super like, yeah, hell yeah, Silver Samurai. I got like 4 Wolverines that can fight this fool right now. Let's go, right? And then like I get him out of the box, and this stupid idiot can't bend his legs. Like he can't bend his legs because of the samurai.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, it was the dumbest thing ever. It's almost as dumb as like the Gambit plastic coat that came with his action figure.
I never had Gambit, but I know what those coats were like though. I mean, they were all the same. They were stiff, and then the leg could go like this. It could like barely, or you had to like force it. You had to force it up through the coat. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, but like, you know, with Image and all this stuff, I was like, this was a part of all that. So we can't take off our nostalgia glasses because we lived it. It's like a part of who we are as fans, as a part of who we are as collectors. So it's like, you know, you can't expect the 90s stuff definitely wasn't for everybody. I mean,
I think that, you know, I mean, obviously they got a lot of flack, right? Yeah. For a lack of substance in their stories or whatever. And I think they could even agree. I didn't even realize this until, you know, recently, because I realized I couldn't find my issue 4 of Youngblood, so I'm gonna have to order a new one. But I was reading it online, and that there's a remastered version that Joe Casey wrote. So he re-scripted the first 4 issues, and it also got recolored.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd never heard about this.
Yeah, it was released as a hardcover, and it's like $80 now. It's ridiculous. I didn't know about it either, and I didn't know until I saw this because I'm like, what is this like? Why does the color look different on this number one?
Yeah.
And then I started like looking through it and stuff, and then I saw like you can see the recolored cover of issue one, and then you see Joe Casey's name on it, and yeah, he completely rescripted it. And then I've seen people say that like it made that initial arc better. Well, obviously, I mean the guy that scripted over these issues wasn't really a comic book writer, like he was just a part of their circle, and he scripted it. But I mean, in terms of the quality of the book, if you put it up next to some of the stuff coming out back then, they upped their game in terms of coloring. They upped their game in terms of paper stock, as opposed to what the other publishers are doing. And I mean, this issue enabled Rob to start Extreme Studios, right? Like, and then he brings in his friends, Marat Michaels, Dan, and then Dan Frega's in there, Dan Panosian, who does the Prophet series, and just like so many titles. For a minute, he was, I think, I can't remember correctly, but the Extreme line of books, Extreme family of books, was doing better, I think, than the Batman books or the Spider-Man books. One of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the numbers were higher, and it's just crazy to think that, a month before this comic drops, there's no Image comic books, right? Like, and then it launches to insane numbers, followed by Spawn to insane numbers. Then you get Savage Dragon, you get Wildcats, you get Shadowhawk, you get Cyberforce, Wetworks eventually comes into play. It's just crazy to think that this, and then people don't even really realize it. This book is what kicked off all of Image. Rob designed the logo. Rob is the one that went out and was like, no, we got to do this, and that type of energy, that type of fucking passion that he had to get this going and for his craft, you can feel that in these issues. You can feel that energy, like it's like emanating from the pages. Like when I go through these old
say what you want about Rob, but you can't deny what Youngblood is and what it means to comic book history.
Yeah,
like it's crazy. Like I was thinking about it when we like after we got finished recording when we were talking about the 30 years and how like people like Jen, like if she was to like. It's complete night and day from how Image started to how it is now. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but it's showing you evolution that needs to take place in with publishers, right? Like, I feel that they freaking nurtured that. They nurtured where comics could go, and Youngblood, Spawn, like Shadowhawk, Wildcats, all those comics are what set it off and set the wheel in motion for us to get the comics like The Walking Dead, Saga, right?
Yeah, because they're constantly pushing forward. They never stay comfortable with what they are. They're always trying to be better, always trying to move forward.
Always trying to move forward, and like, just the whole symbolism of like, what was it? Of just a bunch of young guys getting together and doing their own thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't care what anybody says. Comic books are punk as shit, or fucking punk. Like it's punk rock, bro. Like, especially Image Comics is freaking punk rock, and it's just like, eventually it turned into this whole like like industry, this industry giant. But it's like before that, how it started from its grassroots, from like there. It was very like middle finger to the man, screaming "fuck the world," right?
Yeah, I mean, and they were really going against the grain, dude. And I think like you think about going against the grain, Rob Liefeld is that creator that he doesn't give a fuck. He will say what he will say what he feels. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. He's just he especially when he's younger, he was really brash, right? And I think that that's why he got a lot of maybe negative attention, because people just didn't like that type of persona that he had. But you can't deny his passion. He loves comic books. He continues to love the medium. He continues to try to push the medium forward, whether it's creating his work or talking about comic books, whether, you know what I mean? Like his I've talked about his podcast, dude. His podcast is like one of my favorite things to listen to. I've learned so much about, certain comic books or comic book creators, or, just the beginnings of Image, things during Image, things after he left Image, things that were happening at DC during the New 52. Like, so he is just an interesting person. And I think his just his passion is infectious. You know what I mean? I think it's just, and to me, it's like going back and reading this again just kind of made me a little bit sad that he doesn't have the rights to these characters anymore. And he mentioned it in one of his podcasts, like he has to just look at them as like they're like estranged children to him, and he has to focus on other things, but he has to focus on the ones he does have, which is Evangeline, Brigade, Bloodstrike, all that stuff.
I have an Evangeline hardcover. Fucking love Evangeline.
You have Evangeline hardcover? That's dope.
Yeah. I have Evangeline hardcover. Yeah, no, there's this whole line like around the time Evangeline came out, like Magdalena was out too, and like all these things, all these like dope, really like Witchblade, all these dope like women-led comics. All these
the bad girl comics. It's fine to say it. Yeah. That was there was a whole chunk of time where there was a lot of those kind of characters. Angelus, Witchblade, fucking Fathom I would even throw in there.
Fathom, absolutely. Fathom 100%.
You know what I mean? There was all those type of female characters. Glory was another one. But yeah, I think I wish this was in print. I wish that you could still get it. And I know that now we won't, because he doesn't have the publishing rights, so we're not going to see a collection. But they're easy to find. They're not super hard. I guess number 2 may cost you a little bit more now, just because I think speculators have kind of driven that price up because of the movie announcement, even though there's tons of copies of that comic made. But I would suggest it. If nothing else, maybe 90s comics aren't your thing, but for the historical significance of what this,
Also, it's just have some fun with some comics.
Yeah, dude.
Like, just have some fun. Like, this is off the charts, just fun comic books. Like, this is why I fell in love with comic books. This is why a lot of the characters I design sometimes are derivatives of some of these characters. Sometimes I like big shoulders. Sometimes I like big shoulder pads. Sometimes I like there being a whole like belt of pouches around the thigh, which is absolutely like not ethical at all.
It'd also be very uncomfortable. There'd be a lot of chafing down there if you had.
Exactly. Just does it costumes that don't make sense. Yeah, 90s comics have that, and just have fun with it. You're not everything should be subject to like that much realism, especially in comic books. Especially since you were talking about like an elite team of superpowered people. Like, of course, just pick up these 90s books and take it for what it is and have fun. Yeah. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, but at least you tried, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I have a soft spot for all of them. Like, there's things that I could pick out that maybe I'm not exactly that fond of in terms of like the product, but 9 times out of 10, dude, like I enjoy them every single time I've read them. I've read Wildcats multiple times. The beginning of Spawn multiple times. Shadowhawk multiple times. I've read all of those books multiple times throughout different points of my life. Whether it was when I discovered it as a young kid, as a teenager, now, or especially now, like over the pandemic, like I've read and reread them already, like a couple times, So now it's going to be like a third time for some of these. I know we did an episode on Spawn Volume 1, and
I think that was one of the first episodes.
And I, maybe we don't talk about the first arc of Spawn. Maybe we talk about that chunk when he had all those guest writers on. I think that'd be kind of cool to revisit. The Frank Miller issue, the Neil Gaiman issue, the Dave Sim issue, Alan Moore issue. Grant Morrison wrote a couple issues. Greg Capullo's 2 first issues. So, and then also like the
that sub is insane though too. Like Grant Morrison and Capullo, like that's a hell of a team up.
And then like after we get through the Founding Fathers, dude, like we'll go into some of the adjacent books. Like we could do a Brigade or a Bloodstrike or Evangeline or a Glory or a Bad Rock issue. Grifter had his own book for a minute.
Dude, you can do the Max. You do the same.
The Max. I mean, that's a given, dude. The Pit, and we're gonna do Pit episode 2. There's just so much, dude. There's so much.
There's so much.
It's gonna be a lot of reading for sure, and it's gonna take us a lot of episodes. But you know,
We
if
have a
we
whole
just
ass year.
yeah, and if we just do, you know, short little ones like the one, what we've only been talking a half hour. Do a couple, you know, a bunch of half-hour episodes, dude. I think that we'll have fun, and I know our joy and love for this will be infectious because I've been told by multiple people that after listening to us talk about something, they've wanted to go out and read it. So
Yeah, no, it's no, and that's what Youngblood is. Go have fun, dude. Go have fun. Youngblood is fun, and there's no denying it. There's things that I don't like, and there's things that I do like. But the thing is, like the one thing that outweighs it all is the fun. Like I can't emphasize that enough. Just it's. I want to read more. Like I feel like tonight I'm gonna continue on and get through more than half of this whole entire run.
yeah, I mean, I think what the first run was 10 issues,
Yeah.
and then he relaunched it a couple times. I think there's like 5 volumes altogether. Lasts very long. Like issue 10 was the one where Chapel dies.
Yeah.
And then it's like part of the Extreme Sacrifice crossover. I don't know. There's so much.
Yeah, there's like
Spawn's on the cover of that one too, I think. Yeah.
as our baby boy Spawn. We love that
But
guy.
yeah, dude, I mean they're fun comic books, you know, and even though Jim Lee left, still gonna talk Wildcats because that's still Image. You know, that's still beginning of Image. Even though he
Okay, I can't wait to talk about the Wildcats animated
even though he
series.
sold out. Even though he sold out. What?
I can't wait to talk about the Wildcats animated series.
I never watched that, but yeah, we will talk about it. Maybe I'll go look it up on YouTube.
You can find it on YouTube. They have like all the episodes on YouTube. So right. Yeah, go watch it, dude.
All right. It's bad. It's
like,
bad 90s cartoons. It's fine. It got canceled early, so.
It barely finished the season. I think it's only like 8 episodes or something.
Savage Dragon had a cartoon too.
Yeah, on USA. I remember that.
Yeah. It's a shame we never got a Youngblood, but at least it wasn't a shitty Youngblood cartoon, I guess.
Yeah, no, it was just so bad. It was like, you know, Spartan is totally is 100% Cyclops.
I mean, yeah, I think Wildcats more so than Youngblood, you see the connection with X-Men. You know what I mean? With fucking Wildcats. And of course, I mean, what else are they gonna do? You know, that's what made them their name, and you know, it was a smart business move on their part to not do anything too crazy. But then again, you see what happens when they get a little bit when they go out of their comfort zone, like Silvestri with Darkness, right? Like that's where he really hit his stride. So we're gonna be talking Darkness.
Oh, that we might have to like go hard on Darkness. Darkness is like one of my favorite like books of all time. Like
I love Darkness.
I think in the collection that I used to have before I got rid of it, I think I had like 1 through 75, like 2 through 75. I was only missing issue 1, and man, Darkness was dope. The video game was dope. Like I hope there's a movie eventually.
I know. I hope they adapt some of this stuff. I mean, he's coming back too, so yeah. I mean, there is going to be a new Darkness book. But to tie back up with Youngblood, Rob Liefeld, at what I would say was his most like energetic and some of his most exciting stuff. Obviously, he continues to polish his style and you know evolve as an artist. But I love this era of Rob Liefeld, and Youngblood is. I mean, there's no Image without Youngblood. So if you're a fan of Image at all, maybe you came in, you know, later, definitely check it out. I mean, like, this is what started it, you know? And
yes. I just to like understand the history of it, of like Image Comics, and if you love like Image Comics and want to know where they came from, like maybe not all the comics that came out, but definitely Youngblood. Go read you some Youngblood. Go get you some 1990s era red hair Shaft. Get some
two redheads. I don't understand how both Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld had lead characters with red hair. And it wasn't even like there's a lot of redhead characters in comic books at the time. Wally West is redhead, but the rest, it's weird. It was a weird choice.
There was like a lot of different colors, like you know, like in X-Men stuff, like everybody was kind of dark haired, right? And then you had Jean Grey with like, you know, the red hair. In this, there was like multiple characters where it was just like either they're blonde or they're red haired or white haired or flame for hair. Like there was a lot of like.
Here.
Going on here.
there's a
lot of
lot
stuff going on here.
still going on. Yeah. All right. Anyways, go check out Youngblood. Continue to stick with us. Next episode, we'll be covering Spawn 8 through 11. Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, Dave Sim. Yeah. Alan Moore, Dave Sim, Frank Miller, and Neil Gaiman. All heavy hitters in the industry. Yeah. All guest writing with Todd drawing. And I really think that they pull a lot out from Todd in terms of his art. So it'll be cool to talk about those. And then after that,
Kate, I can't get over it. That's like one of my favorite story arcs of all time. That's a hell of a way to start the character building of what Spawn is.
Like, well, this is when he goes to hell though. So it's not the Billy Kincaid issue, but this is after the fact. So he's like, he's in hell. Walking through hell with him. That's the issue. Yeah. Either way, I mean, it's I was flipping through it not that long ago, and it's just insane. McFarlane back then, dude. My God. But so stick with us as we continue, and Savage Dragon will follow the Spawn episode, and then we'll decide. We'll figure out the rest after that. But yeah, if you're not already following us, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Comic Lounge. Follow Dylan on Instagram and Twitter as well.
At the Dillbot on Instagram, and Dillbot is dope on Twitter.
All right, cool. And make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video goes up. And on that note,
later, buds.